third in that sprint yesterday. It was a class ride by a class rider. Tranmere then, 5th place on the grid. He'll be looking to make up for the bitter disappointment of missing out yesterday in the sprint. 5th to the back of the field, wasn't it yesterday? Circuit. Very shortly. It's going to be standing for the Czech national anthem, which Jack will pause for you right now. Enjoy for the first time in 6 years. We'll hear the Czech national anthem.
Set to make some more iconic history at Brno. One of the iconic Brno moments was Max Pietri winning here back in 1998 with one of the great celebratory wheelies. Let's get his pre-race thoughts now on the grid with Jack.
Yeah, absolutely, a former Premier Class winner here at Brno. And Max, it was a strong performance from Marco Bezzecchi yesterday, who of course in the Aprilia colours was the fastest man out there at the end of the race. Can he translate that now into the Grand Prix?
Well, I think he make a position today, but we need to see the
mentioned. Who will ever forget that huge we had crossing the line in 1998? I think his heart is still in his mouth every time he walks through the gates here in Brno. Jorge Martin then. He said yesterday there was a few pre-sprint nerves, a few pre-sprint butterflies. Inevitable really when you've been missing so much seat time. I mean, it's pretty estimated. In terms of track time in 2025 alone, he's about 6,000 kilometres behind his close rivals. Well, it was an expected but a great surprising sprint podium yesterday, wasn't it, for Tech 3 KTM rider Enea Bastianini? Can he repeat it in the Grand Prix coming up? Sure, let's get the thoughts of Tech 3 boss Nico Goyon, who joins Jack.
Yeah, by far and away the best performance, the best weekend of Enea's KTM career so far. Nico, this one looks like it could be all about tyre management, and we know that the best rider on the grid is Enea when it comes to that. Is everything adding together for a strong result?
Well, I don't know if that's really Enea the best of management. It's true that he's quite good at. Following yesterday's sprint, for one of the key will be the management of the front tire, not especially the rear. So we are more focused and we are the management of the front will be one key. So let's see this race. But yeah, Enea is one of the riders that can do it.
Thanks, Nico. Good luck.
Thank you.
Yeah, a first KTM podium for the Beast yesterday. Thanks, Jack. Thanks to Nico Goyon. Of course, he is a winner here previously. Well, on our last Moto 2 visit was the 27-year-old Italian. I think it's perhaps a bridge too far to think Enea is going to be fighting for a repeated MotoGP 5 years later, particularly when you've got this rider around, Marc Marquez, who has not been defeated now since the Sunday Grand Prix at Silverstone. A Grand Prix, of course, which Fabio Quartararo was dominating. He was thrashing the field, wasn't he? In central England, when, of course, the ride height device stuck on, and there was nothing but heartache and tears for Quartararo as he had to retire. Marco Bezzecchi taking his third spin on the factory Aprilia as a result.
Barring any 11th hour changes on the grid, here is the tyre situation. Everybody on the grid is on the medium front, medium rear combination. Ralph Fernandez has gone back over to the medium rear, but the one outlier now is Johan Zarco on 9th place on the grid, has gone for the soft rear tyre.
Wow, well, fair play to Zarco. Nothing to lose, of course, in terms of the championship. He has rolled the dice. He was on the podium, of course, here 5 years ago at the Frenchman. A podium which featured Brad Binder, who is starting from 19th on the grid. A podium which featured Frankie Morbidelli, who we had the pleasure of talking to Jack just, about 25 minutes ago in the pre-race build-up.
Well, interestingly, sorry, just to put it on Johan Zarco's choice, he did this morning run the soft rear tyre in the warm-up, and it was the same soft rear tyre that he did run in the warm-up session. Already had 10 laps on it, so he has put the vast majority of race distance on that tyre, so he does have some useful information.
Just love that name, the Czech Adrenaline Factory. Of course, we've got the Cathedral of Speed over in Assen. Now we are set for our first MotoGP action in Brno in 5 years. Let's hope it has been worth the wait. The BMW safety car peels away at the front of the grid. 3 minutes away from the warm lap. Of course, when the 3-minute board goes up, that means that there can be no further intervention from team members or mechanics on the motorcycles. That is it. As we get set under blazing sunshine here in Brno. When we arrived here, many of the paddock drove straight from the Sachsenring into the Czech Republic. About a 4.5 hour, 5 hour drive. It was over 30 degrees centigrade when we came here on Monday in Brno. It's been a wonderful week to experience back in this part of Central Europe. Quartararo then on the medium front, medium rear. So too is Marc Marquez, second on the grid. Looking for history, 5 wins in a row potentially with Pecco Bagnaia, who will launch away from pole here in Brno. Saturdays, as he took the checker flag, nearly a second clear of Pedro Acosta. An excellent third place. What a return to active speed for Enea Bastianini, the Italian, missing the German Grand Prix last time out with a real nasty bout of food poisoning. And for just the second time in 2025, it has been great to welcome back onto track the reigning world champion back on the factory of Aprilia and staying put, of course, in 2026. Jorge Martin back in action and committed to the cause as far as the Noali factory has concerned. He put that all to bed. There's been big rumours, big speculation and gossip over the last few weeks while Martin has been recovering at his Andorra base that he was trying to invoke a clause, an exit clause, to maybe push through an exit from Aprilia and move to Honda. But in an emotional press conference here on Thursday, Martin confirmed that he is going nowhere. He will see out his 2-year contract with the factory Aprilia team. Yesterday, Jorge Martin was one of several people inside this MotoGP paddock who once again was lavishing praise on our runaway world championship leader, Marc Marquez. 11 sprint wins in 12 sprints so far this year. 95 points clear now of brother Alex in the World Championship. We're coming to the stage soon where Mark will be able to sit out 2 or 3 Grand Prix and still be leading the MotoGP World Championship. Such has been his dominance so far in 2025. And today, of course, he can write another chapter in the history books, as if he's victorious in the upcoming 21-lap Grand Prix of Czechia. Well, it will be his 5th win on the spin. In history, no Ducati rider has ever achieved such a milestone, and it will certainly feel rather poignant as well, coming 5 years to the weekend, Jerez 2020, where Mark, of course, suffered that serious break in his right arm, where all of his injury woes began 5 years ago. It would be fitting, wouldn't it, if 5 years down the track he is to write more history in the books. Of course, after that injury in 2020, he was coming back to Ducati, leaving Honda to rekindle his love affair with racing, to enjoy racing once again. Well, I think it's fair to say he's enjoying life right now. Marc Marquez then, the big favourite head of this 21-lap battle of Renault, in the company of Matt Burton and Lewis Sotheby in the commentary box with Jack Appleyard down in pit lane, and in the company tens of thousands of fans who are here in Brno. We said already a massive thank you to our Czech organisers and now to our Czech fans, as more than 200,000 of you have joined us here this weekend. At times it's felt like 2 million were coming to the turnstiles here this weekend. It was a massive queues of traffic outside the circuit. But yeah, it's great to be back. It's wonderful to be back in business in Brno. And back in business in the sprint and podium action was Pedro Acosta, who eventually took the checker flag second behind Marc Marquez yesterday.
First podium of any sort this season for Pedro Acosta, be it sprint or Grand Prix. So at one point we began to think if an unlikely victory was coming his way when Marc Marquez first let him through and then was initially under investigation when the sprint was concluded. That investigation found no sanction necessary, so Pedro Acosta did know that the silver medal was his to keep. But a big step forward for Aprilia, for KTM this weekend, as we look at the Aprilia of Marco Bezzecchi. They're all, of course, trying to play catch-up to the runaway Ducatis, in particular Marc Marquez, who starts from the middle of the front row, beaten to pole position by Pecco Bagnaia yesterday, but not beaten once again in the Saturday sprint.
Yeah, 11 sprint wins so far this season. 141 points Mark has taken from the 144 available on sprint Saturdays. This was how the action panned out yesterday, starting from his 25th MotoGP pole position. It was a lightning launch away when it was lights out, wasn't it, for Bagnaia. This was the trouble brewing, though, for 93. Marc Marquez getting a warning light on the dashboard that he was having issues with the tyre pressure. He dropped in behind Pedro Acosta just to get some temperature and pressure back in the front tyre. And once he was confident, he was always convinced that the victory was his. This was the key move. This was 2/3 round the 9th of 10 laps in the sprint yesterday. Marquez working his way back to the front. And let's be frank, it was a lead he would never looked like relinquishing. He powers the factory Ducati over the finish line. Victorious once again. He's running out of fingers and thumbs, isn't he? In fact, he had to call this crew chief Marco Rigamonti. I think all the shoppers were saying, you know, give us the 11 up, the signals. He goes, I've got no thumbs or fingers left. So he did call his crew chief Marco Rigamonti to give him a helping hand.
Well, Jorge Martinez had plenty of helping hands to get him back to where he is today, as he returns on board a factory Aprilia, which of course we found out on Thursday he will ride next season in 2026. After all of the headlines and drama off the racetrack, Jorge Martin can now focus about doing what he loves best on a racetrack. The reigning world champion on board the #1, finally taking to the grid on a Sunday Grand Prix for the first time since that awful injury or series of injuries he sustained in Qatar back in April. The world champion starts from the 4th row of the grid in 12th place.
Hard to believe, isn't it, that the last time Jorge Martin completed a MotoGP race on a Sunday, it was the best day of his life, the best day of his career, when he was victorious, when he captured the World Championship in the Circuit de Barcelona de Catalunya last November. He was certainly blowing off some cobwebs yesterday. Just all about rebuilding the lost confidence, rebuilding the feeling. Some will say rebuilding some trust with Aprilia as well, after all the behind-the-scenes shenanigans. But Pecco Bagnaia then, set to start from pole position. Bagnaia is a rider, Lewis, who just does not seem to, whatever he does, on or off track so far this year, a break at all.
He had a little bit of good fortune in qualifying yesterday, but that was about it, of course, with the late crash from Marc Marquez, which saw him take pole position. But in the sprint, it felt like anything that could have gone wrong for Pecco Bagnaia could have gone wrong. In the end, he took the checkered flag all the way down in 7th place. 21 riders start this checker Prix today. Sadly, only one for VR46. That's Fabio Di Gianantonio. Frankie Morbidelli, though, is here, and he's talking to Jack.
He Indeed, great to be joined by Frankie. Firstly, obviously sad that you're not in your levers, helmet ready to go out and battle in this one. So how are you, Frankie?
Finally, I'm good. I'm enjoying my time here at the pit box with the guys without having the duty of a race weekend, of an actual race weekend riding. It's a whole different, but it's nice in a way.
I know you've been out on track during some of the sessions. What have you been able to use from this week?
Been checking out a lot of bikes in these 3 days. I've been going on track, been trying to see the characteristics of the different manufacturers of different riders, and it was very nice actually to see what the riders do live. First of all, because it's impressive. You know, from the side of the track, it's very impressive, especially the first 10 minutes. I got goosebumps in every session the first 10 minutes, so it was impressive. Then because you see what the riders do to deal with the very difficult task, which is to bring these bikes as quick as possible around the track.
Can you let us in on a few secrets? What were the things that surprised you the most? What were the things that impressed you the most?
I mean, for sure, Mark's entry is impressive. The way he's able to bring the bike into the corners is very impressive. But I was also very impressed by Beds, by Barco's way of riding. He's really in a great shape, and also Zarco. Zarco was riding really well. Okay, risking a lot, but at the same way, he was able to be precise in every lap, even though it was looking a bit sketchy. So, yeah, these are the three riders that impressed me the most in these days.
Just finally, you look in great shape sat here, but what are the next steps in your recovery to make sure you're at 100% for Austria?
I'll keep going with the recovery on the shoulder, the collarbone. It's pretty good already right now, but for sure it's not good enough to bring a MotoGP around at its top level. So we'll chase that on this summertime. So no holidays for me. Unfortunately, I'll try to recover as much as I can to present ourselves in Austria in the best shape.
It's great chatting, Frankie, but I have to say, I much prefer walking to the grid with you and you quoting AC/DC for us. That for me is still moment of the season so far.
Thank you. I prefer it as well. We will do it again for sure. I will quote another song, and then you'll catch it.
We look forward. We'll try catch it this time. We missed it first time around, but I'll be on my toes to catch it next time. Good luck in the recovery, and we'll see you in Austria.
Thank you. Have fun. You'll have fun watching these races because they are beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, great to hear from Frankie Morbidelli. A challenge accepted, Frankie. We will look forward to hearing you quote more heavy metal. AC/DC shook me all night long. He was quoting on the grid in Assen. Yeah, just 8 days into his rehab after that horrendous crash in that wet Sachsenring sprint last Saturday. Frankie says he can't relax in the summer break then. He has to go through a rather rigorous recovering regime. But yeah, we wish Frankie well on that recovery. As Lewis mentioned, we were hoping to have 22 riders in action here today in Brno. Just to cover off a bit more housekeeping, now we've just spoken to Frankie Morbidelli. Obviously he's not riding here this afternoon. We're missing Maverick Vinales on the Rebel KTM Tech 3 machine. I bet Vinales will be gutted to be sitting at home all season long. Maverick's been the top KTM rider, and then he has to sit at home injured with a fractured left shoulder. And he sees two KTMs on the podium in the sprint. So no Vinales and no Morbidelli. We were missing Somkiat Chantra while he recovers from a serious knee injury suffered in a training accident recently. He missed the German Grand Prix. His place taken here in Brno by Taka Nakagami, welcome back into the fold at Idemitsu LCR Honda. But unfortunately, as you can see, this is a replay at turn 3 yesterday. Poor old Taka wiped out by Yamaha wildcard Augusto Fernandez, and this year I think Nakagami felt like he was relatively, fortunately, escaped unscathed from that spill yesterday. But as the sort of adrenaline wore off, the pain started to kick in, and sadly Taka was diagnosed with serious ligament damage in his right knee. I believe he's probably already on his way back to Japan to convalesce. As we mentioned, a bit of a jinx second seat right now inside LCR Honda. No Chantra, and now his injury replacement injured.
Augusto Fernandez, who's here wildcarding on a 5th Yamaha on circuit this weekend, he will serve a long lap penalty in this Czech Grand Prix in half an hour's time as a punishment for that collision.
Here is Jack Miller then. He's going to be part relaxing through the summer break. He said he's going to be on the boat at the Great Barrier Reef, which I have to say, not jealous at all, Jack. Going green with envy right now in the commentary box at the prospect of that. But he also has more pressing matters as well after this Brno Grand Prix, a weekend off before he teams up with some heavyweight Yamaha talent in the Suzuka 8-hour endurance race. Johan Zarco also will be heading to the Far East as well. Miller will go away from the head of the 4th row in 10th spot. Zarco 1 place ahead of him in 9th.
Yeah, Miller would have, of course, earned his place in qualifying 2 on Friday by virtue of a mixed condition start to the weekend. On Friday we had some very inclement weather. It was a full wet practice session which saw the likes of Jack Miller forced their way into Q2, Johan Zarco doing the same. Fortunately though, it did dry out by the time we got into the weekend. That is the famous Ducati dashboard that Marc Marquez was watching like a hawk in yesterday's Tissot sprint, although as we turned out, confirmed by Davide Tardozzi to Jack in warm-up this morning, the information that Marc Marquez was being given, and Pecco Bagnaia of course, about their tyre pressures wasn't exactly correct.
Marc Marquez, a winner here in 2019. He was absent, of course, here on our last visit back in 2020 as his right arm injury hell was just beginning. Thankfully, he's through it. Joan Mir, well, he certainly did not capitalise on what was an excellent 5th place in Q2 yesterday. His best qualifying in 37 rounds since India towards the back end of 2023. But a launch control issue saw Mir plummet back down through the order. There was a similar... Alex Marquez also dropped back through the field, but he had a big wheel spin off the line. And then Mir trying to recover lost ground as he flicked it into the high-speed turn 3, just no rear grip whatsoever, the rear tyre on the temperature, and he ran wide and dropped all the way to the back of the pack. So, yeah, you feel like yesterday was certainly a wasted opportunity as far as Mir and HRC are concerned. It's a bit of a novelty, isn't it, for those pairing to find themselves on those first 2 rows. Can they make amends over 21 laps this afternoon?
He wasn't the only rider who plummeted to the back at the start of yesterday's sprint. Alex Marquez did much the same, pulls onto the grid. Now, look ahead of him, Marc Marquez, his older brother, discards a tear-off, which lands in Alex Marquez's grid slot, although Alex did confirm later on that he had been able to clear that out of the way, so that wasn't easy, and moving it with his left hand, so that didn't inconvenience him off the start line as Marc Marquez adopted some Mario Kart tactics to his younger brother before the sprint got underway. Didn't stop Alex Marquez having a terrible start though, rear span up anyway off the start line, and it dropped him all the way to the back of the field. And once he completed that first lap outside the top 15, any hope of sprint points disappeared out of the window.
Well, Mark's talked about Alex being his chief championship rival this year. A bit of sabotage from the brothers there between the pair of them. Yeah, Alex quickly saw that the tear-off was heading his way. Who will ever forget Marc Marquez spinning up his rear tyre on the Gresini Ducati in Phillip Island last year, dropped all the way back down to 13th or 14th place before he started what was another typical brilliant recovery through the pack. Still heavy strapping and taping on that left hand for Alex Marquez. That is, of course, all the outcome of his contact with Pedro Acosta when they were fighting for the podium in the Dutch TT towards the back end of June. Still not completely fully recovered for Alex, and there's some pretty high-speed change of direction around this Brno circuit, so a bit of a taxing Grand Prix coming up for him. It's been a taxing weekend all round, hasn't it, for poor old Brad Binder. He came here with such high hopes. The last MotoGP winner here back in 2020, what a day he will never forget. Here back in August of 2020. winner of the Grand Prix, just his third Premier Class start for Lewis. It's been a real painful return, you have to say, for Binder. Added to his woes, a tip-off in the warm session this morning.
Yeah, and it's against the trend of the weekend from a KTM point of view, isn't it? Because KTM have had a bit of an upturn in fortunes this weekend. A double sprint podium yesterday with Pedro Costa with an Air Bastianini, but those good fortunes haven't made their way over to Brad Binder's side of the KTM camp. 19th on the grid. His sprint performance actually yesterday was very good. Came to in a position of the points. Paul Espargaro on the second of the Tech 3 RC16s denied Brad Binder that final sprint points, but any hopes of Binder going back-to-back at Brno 5 years since he won the 2020 Grand Prix here were remote already. They took an even further turn for the worse when he qualified down on the 7th row.
Well, it's the self-proclaimed Czech adrenaline factory. In about 25 minutes' time, Jorge Martin's going to get that special, unique feeling of the adrenaline rush just before it's lights out ahead of his first Grand Prix, or what he hopes to be his first Grand Prix finish. That's since last November. He said yesterday, after taking the checker flag 11th in the sprint from 12th on the grid, he could not care less, not care one iota whether he was 4th, 5th, 11th or 19th. It's not about results. That's not the overriding factor right now as far as Martin's concerned. It's just all about, as we mentioned, just finding his form, finding his confidence back on a factory at Prix, which launched him skywards on just the 14th lap of 2025 at the Sepang test in February. And of course he had a big training injury just as he was poised to return to action at the start of the season. We saw him miss the opening 3 Grand Prix. And then things, just when you thought they couldn't, they did go from bad to worse for Martin. That sickening collision he had with Fabio Di Gianantonio under the lights in Losail left him with multiple rib fractures, a fractured lung. Some dark times he's had, Lewis, as he mentioned in that press conference on Thursday when he announced he was staying with the Prix for 2026. He said he was in intensive care for 4 days, and he said only really his girlfriend and his father Ankel really truly understand just how much, particularly in those early days, how much he was suffering.
It just goes to show what all of these MotoGP riders put on the line when they put their leathers and their crash helmet on and throw these incredible MotoGP machines on the line at such high speeds. I hope you're enjoying your first MotoGP experience. You certainly got your favourite on pole position, that particular Czech fan, but as far as Jorge Martin is concerned, all of those painful, quite literally, hours, days and weeks have all been for this feeling of getting yourself back on a MotoGP grid. Said his first week after the accident in Qatar, he barely slept a wink. It must have been so hard, both mentally and physically, for Jorge Martin to even contemplate racing in MotoGP again. But he never gave up the hope that these days would come back, and we certainly hope that Jorge Martin is back for good in 2025.
Well, that fan's first MotoGP race, trust us, it will not be your last. Once you have been bitten by the bug, it never leaves you. It's the greatest motorsport show on earth. You can just see that grandstand there on the pretty much next to the finish line. That building on the right was where myself and Lewis are just enjoying this build-up to our 12th round of the season. This does move us into the second half of the campaign. If the first half, or if the second half is as good as the first half as far as Marc Marquez is concerned, well, he is going to be, without any question, lifting a 7th MotoGP World Championship. I was going to say November, but it might have come well before that, given his current winning rate. He is winning for fun right now as the 93.
7 pole positions, 9 podiums, 7 Sunday wins, and now 11 sprint wins for Marc Marquez. But can Pedro Acosta go one better than we saw in the sprint yesterday when he took a fine 2nd place? We can now speak to his crew chief, Paul Ciabatta. Here's with Jack.
Yeah, absolutely right, Lewis. What a top job by Pedro yesterday to pick up that 2nd place, a much-deserved podium, and it must feel like a weight off the shoulders and an opportunity to now go and attack today, Paul.
Yeah, no, mate, absolutely. You know, we've been close, and just trying to put it all together, but it's difficult out there, and everyone's going really hard, and everyone's riding good. So to really show the potential again and put it together has taken a lot of demons away and just made us really refocus again, you know, and believe in it. So today's everything to play for. We get a good start like yesterday. We have good pace. A long race, not been able to do lots and lots of laps on the tyres to understand the real drop. So it's going to be interesting, but we've got it under control, I think.
As you say, step into the unknown for pretty much everybody today. How well prepared is Pedro?
Yeah, no, I mean, to be honest, the way he was managing everything yesterday in the race was super. You know, if he can keep that calmness about him, not use up the tyre too much at the end. The track is in great shape, you know, with the new asphalt, it's fantastic. A lot more grip, but of course you use the tyre. So the lap time's so much faster, so it will be a bit of managing involved for sure.
Good luck.
Cheers, buddy, thank you.
Yeah, thanks to Pedro Acosta's crew chief Paul Trevathan. Thanks, as always, to Jack. Peter Pavel, the Czech president here on site, talking to Dorna CEO Carmelo Espeleta. As we get then set for the starting grid ahead of 21 laps here in Brno.
And interesting to see the tyre choices as we go through this grid. Bagnaia, Marquez, Quartararo, your front row. All raced the medium rear yesterday. They do the same today. Bezzecchi, Mir and Ralph Fernandez on row 2. With Ralph Fernandez at the moment running the hard rear tyre that he ran in warm-up this morning. Pedro Acosta, Alex Marquez and Johan Zarco together on row 3. Jack Miller, Enea Bastianini and Jorge Martin next up. Bastianini came from the 4th row to the podium in the sprint yesterday. To Gian Antonio, Paul Espargaro and Alex Rins together on row 5. Espargaro scored his first points, of course, of the year in the sprint yesterday as he replaces Maverick Vinales. Luca Marini, Miguel Oliveira and Fomin Aldeguer on row 6. Brad Binder, your 2020 winner, 19th ahead of Ayagura and Augusto Fernandez, completing your grid of 21, which we remind you does not feature Taka Nakagami. And the early information on that graphic in terms of tyres is that everyone is going medium with the exception of Raul Fernandez.
The big outlier, isn't he, the 24-year-old Spaniard? Only his second ever sprint top 6 yesterday. He really has actually found some form, has Fernandez, with those recent factory Aprilia upgrades. Well, he's putting them to good use. Top 10s in his last 4 Grand Prix in MotoGP. That is his best run so far. This is his 69th Grand Prix, only the 4th time actually in the Premier Class he's qualified inside the top 6. So all round, and all said and done, it's been a very strong weekend so far for the Trackhouse Aprilia rider.
We'll be looking to try and continue that upward trend as Pecco Bagnaia leads Marc Marquez in their walk off the grid. He will lead them away from the grid in just under 20 minutes time when this Czech Grand Prix gets underway. It only took Marc Marquez until turn 3 on lap 1 yesterday to get ahead of Pecco Bagnaia, and we have seen already this year some explosive early action in Grand Prix between those two. Cast your minds back to Mugello. Aston, of course, we saw them going head-to-head early on as Marc Marquez took control of that race. Qatar as well, as Bagnaia rocketed up the order from the 4th row, attacking Marc Marquez. They will both be desperate to seize that early track position.
No win in the last 8 Grand Prix for Bagnaia, who was a serial winner, certainly in 2024. He took 11 victories, didn't he, last year in Grand Prix, and still just came up short in terms of the World Championship battle. His only win so far this season, well, that came, of course, in that very dramatic Austin battle at the Circuit of the Americas in Texas, and he was given a huge helping hand, wasn't he, by Mark, crushing out of a comfortable lead. There goes the ice jacket, very hot, by far the hottest conditions of the weekend so far here. There was maybe a couple of riders, a couple of teams who might well have been thinking, would it be possible to run the soft rear tyre? Would that be an option over 21 laps? Clearly nobody thinking it's just too hot to handle for the soft tyre. Fabio Quartararo then, 5th, an excellent 5th in the sprint yesterday. Let's get his pre-race thoughts with Jack.
Yeah, I'm really interested to speak to Fabio because warm-up this morning was impressive. 16 laps on the rear tyre and you were still lapping. Very quick indeed. That must give you a lot of confidence for today.
Yeah, of course, a lot of confidence, but you know, after the race, the track is always, after the Moto2 race is always different, the temperature is different. But yeah, we will try to not overheat the tire, that is our main goal. In the race is always different. But yeah, I'm pretty happy and hopefully we can manage to get the tire in the correct temperature.
Good luck, have fun.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much, Jack. Thanks to Fabio Quartararo. It's a very sparse grid at the moment in terms of rider numbers. Lots of them are seeking shade off this incredibly hot pre-race build-up, the Grand Prix of Czechia. Round 12 of 22. We'll off on our welcome 3-week summer break before we return to action at the Red Bull Ring in Spielberg. Alex Rins, well, he's staying put, plonked on top of the factory Yamaha. Rins goes from the back of row 5 in 15th place. Alex Well, he was 10th over the line last time out in that depleted field in the Sachsenring, that race of survival 7 days ago in Germany. That was actually his first top 10 since Sepang last year in Malaysia. Only rider actually is Alex Rins, to be fair to him, to finish all 12 sprints so far this year and all 11 Grand Prix.
Underlining on your screens there of what Marc Marquez is on the verge of achieving here, something that no Ducati rider has ever done before. And of course, when you talk to some of the Ducati greats, Pecco Bagnaia here on screen, Jorge Martin, reigning world champion on a Ducati last year on his way to the title, of course the great Casey Stoner back in 2007. None of those won 5 consecutive full-length Sunday Grand Prix. And it's not just that, of course, it's 5 consecutive doubles that he's chasing.
It's a full house. It has been absolutely brilliant to be back here in the Czech Republic. More than 200,000 fans have welcomed us back to this absolutely magnificent circuit. Let's go down and speak to a very, very special guest. It's the president, Mr. Petr Pavel, who joins Jack.
Yeah, absolute honour to have Mr. President here of the Czech Republic. I know that you're a huge bike fan. You were at the World Superbike event in Most. So how much does it mean to you to have MotoGP return to Brno?
I am really very proud because MotoGP, but primarily circuit here in Brno, it's kind of a mecca of Czech automobile sport. And I was here as a young kid on a number of races, so I'm really proud that I can be back when we have MotoGP after 5 years back in Czech Republic in such a great setup. It's fantastic.
I saw that you were trackside on Friday taking some photos of these machines. How much did it impress you to be that close to the fastest bikes on Earth?
I always love it when I can link a number of hobbies, and motorbikes and photographs are my best hobbies. So I came here on Friday to got some pictures from the training, and now all of the 3 races, and I'm really grateful that we can do it.
Well, on behalf of MotoGP, it's so good to be back in Brno, and I'm sure the fans are going to be treated to an epic race.
Thank you very much. I hope that there will be no more interruption to MotoGP in Brno. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, here, fantastic. Very great job, Jack, speaking to the President of the Czech Republic, Petr Pavel, who trusts us. He's not just here as a dignitary welcoming us back to Brno, he comes here as a genuine hardcore MotoGP fan. He's already been at the World Superbike event in Most, and we sincerely hope that our return to Brno in 2025 is the first of a very, very long run. Jack's ticked off his interview head of state on the grid. That's another one that he's got in the books. Well done.
Something to tell the grandkids about when he's older. Well, who is going to be the boss of Brno this afternoon? Pecco Bagnaia. Of course, the sole victory this season, which was something of a gift in some respects when Marc Marquez crashed from ahead of him at the Grand Prix of the Americas. Pecco Bagnaia, of course, having to fight so hard to try and get himself on terms with Marc Marquez. Heavyweights on this starting grid. Well, Jack Capliard is now on the grid with someone who's used to using his fists in his particular field. Jack, now to you.
Yeah, I'm down here with Jiří Procházka, a former light heavyweight champion in the UFC, a huge star in the Czech Republic. You've been used to some big events during your time, headlining some of them yourself. What is it like seeing these gladiators on the grid?
Man, I'm living like 2 kilometers from here, so I hear normally the noise from here, like normally every day, daily. So right now I have the chance to see how fast they go, and how much noise is to be here right now, and so it's fascinating for me. Yeah.
I imagine in your discipline, mindset is so crucial as you're about to step into the ring. For these guys, 21 laps ahead, when they put that visor down, can you almost picture yourself being in that same moment with them?
And I already tried to sit on the bike, and it's really powerful, man. Without some defending, or how to say, some protection. Yeah, so it's really strong.
It's great to see you here, a Brno local as well, so I'm sure you're going to enjoy it.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, great to hear from Jiří Procházka. Always wonderful to hear some Czech sporting stars down on the grid. Yeah, being a UFC fighter, but he was good chat, really good chat. Well, he lives a couple of kilometres away from this Brno circuit, so he'll be delighted to have the MotoGP field back in action. But he was having to wake up at about 6:30 this morning to get into the circuit, living just 2 kilometres away. So then we are
Don't think any traffic steward's going to argue with him either.
Yeah, no, they're not at all. Yeah, if there's any security causing him issues, well, I think he's more than capable of sorting it out himself. The Beast, well, back with a bang, wasn't he, last weekend? Or back with a bang this weekend in Brno, I should say. Of course, the food poisoning that struck Enea that kept him out of the Saxon ring sounded horrendous. We all know what it's like to be laid low with food poisoning. But the Italian barely ate anything for 3-4 days. He lost 3 kilos in weight. You can see the impact that the food poisoning had on Enea when he was speaking to Jack in Park Ferme yesterday at the end of the sprint. He looked very, very gaunt, still quite pale. But you can't keep a good rider down for long. 11th to 3rd in that sprint yesterday. It was a class ride by a class rider. Joan Mir then, 5th place on the grid. He'll be looking to make up for the bitter disappointment of missing out yesterday in the sprint. 5th to the back of the field, wasn't he, yesterday? This Brno circuit, very, very shortly, is going to be standing for the Czech national anthem, which myself, Lewis and Jack will pause for you right now. Enjoy for the first time in 6 years. We'll hear the Czech national anthem.
Set to make some more iconic history at Brno. One of the iconic Brno moments was Max Biaggi winning here back in 1998 with one of the great celebratory wheelies. Let's get his pre-race thoughts now on the grid with Jack.
Yeah, absolutely, a former Premier Class winner here at Brno. And Max, it was a strong performance from Marco Bezzecchi yesterday. You, of course, in the Aprilia colours, was the fastest man out there at the end of the race. Can he translate that now into the Grand Prix?
Well, I think he made a great performance yesterday. I finished just 4th, very close to the podium position. I believe he can make another strong position today, but we need to see the tire, especially with the front. Hopefully, we had a little bit problem with to be used. We suffer a little bit. I don't know for long distance if he saved the front. So this is the main problem.
Thanks, Max.
No problem.
Always great to hear the thoughts of MotoGP legend, 4 times 250cc world champion, Max Biaggi. Race for here in Brno, as Lewis mentioned, who will ever forget that huge scare he had crossing the line in 1998. I think Max's heart is still in his mouth every time he walks through the gates here in Brno. Jorge Martin then. He said yesterday there was a few pre-sprint nerves, a few pre-sprint butterflies. Inevitable, really, when you've been missing so much seat time. I mean, it's pretty estimated. In terms of track time in 2025 alone, he's about 6,000 kilometres behind his close rivals. Well, it was an expected but a great surprising sprint podium yesterday, wasn't it, for Tech 3 KTM rider Anaya Bastianini? Can he repeat it in the Grand Prix coming up? Sure, let's get the thoughts of Tech 3 boss Nico Goyon, who joins Jack.
Yeah, by far and away the best performance, the best weekend of Anaya's KTM career so far. Nico, this one looks like it could be all about tyre management, and we know that the best rider on the grid is Anaya when it comes to that. Is everything adding together for a strong result?
Well, I don't know if that's really any other the best of management. It's true that he's quite good at. Following yesterday's sprint, for one of the key will be the management of the front tire, not especially the rear. So we are more focused and we are the management of the front will be one key. So let's see this race, but Enea is one of the riders that can do it.
Thanks, Nico. Good luck.
Thank you.
Yeah, a first KTM podium for the Beast yesterday. Thanks, Jack. Thanks to Nico Goyon. Of course, he is a winner here previously. Well, on our last Moto 2 visit was the 27-year-old Italian. I think it's perhaps a bridge too far to think Anea is going to be fighting for a repeated Moto GP 5 years later, particularly when you've got this rider around, Marc Marquez, who has not been defeated now since the Sunday Grand Prix at Silverstone. A Grand Prix, of course, which Fabio Quartararo was dominating. He was thrashing the field, wasn't he, in central England, when, of course, the ride height device stuck on and there was nothing but heartache and tears for Quartararo as he had to retire. Marco Bezzecchi taking his first win on the factory of Prix as a result.
Barring any 11th hour changes on the grid, here is the tyre situation. Everybody on the grid is on the medium front, medium rear combination. Ralph Fernandez has gone back over to the medium rear, but the one outlier now is Johan Zarco on 9th place on the grid, has gone for the soft rear tyre.
Wow, well, fair play to Zarco. Nothing to lose, of course, in terms of the championship. He has rolled the dice. He was on the podium, of course, here 5 years ago, the Frenchman. The podium which featured Brad Binder, who is starting from 19th on the grid. A podium which featured Frankie Morbidelli, who we had the pleasure of talking to Jack just, about 25 minutes ago in the pre-race build-up.
Well, interestingly, sorry, just to put it on Johan Zarco's choice, he did this morning run the soft rear tyre in the warm-up, and it was the same soft rear tyre that he did run in the warm-up session. Already had 10 laps on it, so he has put the vast majority of race distance on that tyre, so he does have some useful information.
Just love that name, the Czech Adrenaline Factory. Of course, we've got the Cathedral of Speed over in Assen. Now we are set for our first MotoGP action in Brno in 5 years. Let's hope it has been worth the wait. The BMW safety car peels away at the front of the grid. 3 minutes away from the warm lap. Of course, when the 3-minute board goes up, that means that there can be no further intervention from team members or mechanics on the motorcycles. That is it. As we get set under blazing sunshine here in Brno. When we arrived here, many of the paddock drove straight from the Sachsenring into the Czech Republic. About a 4.5 hour, 5 hour drive. It was over 30 degrees centigrade when we came here on Monday in Brno. It's been a wonderful week to experience back in this part of Central Europe. Fabio Quartararo then on the medium front, medium rear. So too is Marc Marquez. Second on the grid, looking for history. 5 wins in a row potentially with Pecco Bagnaia, who will launch away from pole here in Brno.